Who is Jeffrey Epstein? Well, he died in a prison cell in August of 2019. He was being charged with multiple felonies of child abuse, sexual abuse, trafficking. But did you know that he was first accused and it was first investigated that this was happening in 2003? We knew of these instances, or at least the FBI and prosecutors knew that he was being investigated for some of these problems. And only in 2019 was he now facing major charges for this. This time, he was accused of running a vast network of trafficking and molesting, raping young girls. And we're talking girls between the ages of 12 and 17. When he died, he was 66, and he has been connected with major players, including Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, Bill Gates, Prince Andrew. Jeffrey Epstein is a sexual predator. And he had been that for years. So why did the government fail to protect these girls? Why did the FBI fail to protect these children, these daughters of parents? Who is Glenn Maxwell? She is the lifelong partner who helped Jeffrey Epstein commit, plan, and conspire to do these horrible things to these young women. She was right there in the mix of it. She was a lifelong partner. He trusted her completely. But not only that, she was the one planning these. She was the one finding girls. She was the one talking to the girls, manipulating them, gaslighting them, getting them ready and prepared to then be raped, molested, and all the horrible things that happened to them with Jeffrey Epstein. She was right there, and she was okay with it. She knows everything that went on in that house. And because of that, she was charged with 5 felonies and was found guilty on all counts. She appealed that, and she lost the appeal. She is now being sentenced on June 28th. And why is this important? Because I believe that she will be sentenced to maximum life in prison without the chance of parole. She is the person that should be held culpable, responsible for the victims that had to endure the torrential abuse by Jeffrey Epstein. How did Jeffrey Epstein make money? We know that at the time of his death, he was worth over $500 million. But did you know Jeffrey Epstein was a college dropout? So how did he amass all this fortune and had all this influence on some of the most powerful people in the world, including princes, presidents, and powerful businessmen? He started his career by literally teaching physics and math with no degree. He was let go of that because of non-performance. After that, he went on to work for Stephen Hoffenberg. He was the CEO of Towers Financial, and he has now come out and said that was the worst mistake that he's ever made, because in the time that him and Jeffrey were working together, they started the biggest Ponzi scheme in our history. And because of that, they amassed this crazy fortune. Hoffenberg went to prison for 18 years because of this, but Jeffrey Epstein got out of it by cutting a deal with prosecutors to turn in the people that were doing Ponzi scheme, and he got to keep some of his money. There was a lot of famous people that were connected to Jeffrey Epstein. Why has that list not come about? We know that the Department of Justice has that list. Why have they not leaked it? In fact, it's gotten to the point where even Elon Musk just a few weeks ago tweeted out and said, does nobody think that this is weird, that we do not know the names of the people that were involved in the biggest sex trafficking and scandal of our history? Why are they not telling us? We know that there's major players involved, including Prince Andrew, who's been stripped of his titles and is being sued in Britain, possibly going to go to jail. Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, Bill Gates being one of those names. We know that major players are in play. We should know who they are. And if they had any part in it, they should be held accountable as well. Why is the Glenn Maxwell trial, why was it not public when Amber Heard and Johnny Depp's trial was made public? You would think that such, a person who has been a co-conspirator and partner in one of the biggest sex scandals of our lifetime, that would be an important trial for people to see. And I want to tell you why there is a difference. As you know, with Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, they're public figures. They choose to put themselves out in this light, and they made public statements that then caused defamation. So in my mind, it made sense that the court said, yes, let's make their trial public because they are public people. You have to remember with Glenn Maxwell, there are real victims that do not choose to be public. And a court wants to protect their privacy because they don't want them to have to relive the horror, the shame. They don't need the public to publicly look at them and then be able to cause more hurt. So what happened, and why did Jeffrey Epstein not serve years in prison when he was charged clear back in 2004. This is where it comes to a whole lot of corruption in whatever form, where money, power can get to the best of people. Palm Beach in Florida were investigating this when a parent of a 14-year-old child came forward and said that her child was paid $300 to come to his house, strip naked, and massage him. Palm Beach prosecutors then took the case under advisement and were investigating it. They were investigating for over 18 months. When the Palm Beach police chief got tired of waiting and said, you know what, we need to get the FBI involved. That's when the FBI got involved. Well, in the meantime, Jeffrey Epstein was finally charged on a state level for sex trafficking. He was also then charged on a federal level. On a federal level, he would have much harsher sentences. He would go to a federal prison, much less ability to negotiate. But what happens next is nuts. Why was Jeffrey Epstein's sweetheart deal in his first time being charged with these really horrible crimes a joke? He was sentenced by pleading out on felony counts of sex trafficking and abuse of children. He was only to serve 18 months in prison. Oh, it gets worse. That 18 months, he actually only served 3.5, and then he was able to get work release. This is a very rich man that used work as a time for him to abuse children, and they let him out to go to work. First of all, he was sentenced in Florida, so he was in Florida. He doesn't work in Florida. It was all highly suspicious and really, really, what I believe, super corrupt of the government and what they were allowing him to do. These victims were real victims that did not have the opportunity to be heard and did not have the ability to finalize or get some closure with their case. He was then to register as a sex offender in the state of New York, and he was to check in every 90 days on that status. Don't worry, he never did. For the next 10 years was still able to abuse girls, and nobody seemed to care. How was Jeffrey Epstein able to be charged again? As you remember, when he was first sentenced in 2011, he got this sweetheart deal where he was immune by being charged federally. That's where that federal judge came in and said that they violated the victims' rights clause by not giving the victims a heads up that they were negotiating this plea, and therefore they invalidated that clause or invalidated that non-prosecution agreement. Because of that, it allowed civil suits to come forward against Jeffrey Epstein again for victims that were in that 2011 case, and it allowed for him to then be investigated again and charged on a federal level. He was charged in 2019 with several counts of sex trafficking, abuse against minors, rape, molestation, you name it. And it was in 2019 that it looked like justice was finally going to be served because he was held without bail. How did Jeffrey Epstein die? Well, in August of 2019, he was sitting in his cell waiting to be put on trial for all of these crimes he was being charged with. Now, he was on supposedly suicide watch, even though he had told a psychologist weeks prior that he was a coward and that he would never kill himself. The interesting facts that lead up to his death caused a lot of eye raises and wondering what really happened. It was deemed a suicide. He killed himself. But 2 weeks prior, he tried to kill himself. He was found unresponsive in his cell. They were able to bring him back. And then the events leading up to his actual death are really interesting. The guards were supposed to be on 24-hour watch because he was on suicide watch, but for some reason they decided not to check on him for hours, which allowed him to then do this. And those guards were eventually charged with crimes for failing to protect or failing to do their job. Why is the Jeffrey Epstein scandal case, his death, so important to the Me Too movement? Jeffrey Epstein is a perfect example of what power, money can do. It allows you to become this person where, he literally, I think, had justified his acts because he believed he was above God, maybe, and he could get away with it because he had so much money. He could buy off the people, he could buy off his staff. He literally convinced people that what he was doing was okay because, hey, I'll just give you money to keep your mouth shut. And because of that, Me Too was coming, right? Harvey Weinstein, and the breakdown of that was in 2016, which we know Jeffrey Epstein and him had a close relationship, which doesn't surprise anybody because Harvey Weinstein is just as evil as Jeffrey Epstein. So why is it important for Me Too to continue? Because we cannot allow power and money to allow corruption, deception, manipulation, and these horrible, horrible crimes. We need to protect girls. We need to protect people from this scandal, these scandalous, these abilities to basically basically justify in your head that I am who I am, therefore the rules don't apply to me. Me Too is all about standing up and saying not anymore. And that's what this case is important for, to remember. Me Too is about me, that I will not stand for injustice. I will not stand for corruption. And we have to continue that on, because I don't ever want to hear about another person like Jeffrey Epstein being able to get away for so long with these horrible crimes.